We're in the management chapter.
Okay.
And they're just starting on their business plans that they're going to do by the end of the semester. So some of them have no idea
Okay. Yep.
of any business to start, but
And what class is this?
intro to business.
Okay, intro to business. Okay. My name is Jeromy. I started a plumbing company in 2000, and there's a couple reasons why I started a company. First of all, I don't do well with authority. I don't do well with listening to other people. I didn't do well having bosses. I do have a college degree. I picked sociology. Just to give you guys kind of a frame, sociology was where the girls were. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I went to college. And then I started a plumbing company. A lot of people that I talk to talk about white-collar businesses. My business is definitely blue-collar, and it's a totally different concept. The way I was introduced to ACC is my best friend is the dean here, and so I listen to his perspective and what he talks about, and I listen to other business owners, and it's much different. And things have changed a lot over time. Kind of starting with like mission statement and vision statement. I went to the bank and asked for a loan. My business plan was maybe 3 pages long, and they loaned me $50,000 off of those 3 things, and basically committing blood to them to make sure that I would pay them back. Over time, I've grown. When I started, the first year I was in business, I did about $100,000 in business. This year I'm going to do $10 million. And things have drastically changed. I borrowed money for a building in 2008. Kind of interesting because the bank came to me. Banks were looking for customers because of the recession. They weren't able to lend money, and they went to their best customers and said, "We want to lend you money." And I thought, great. I gave them a 3-page business plan in 2000. In 2008, I had a 4-inch notebook that I had to submit to them to get the loan for the building. And I was floored about what had changed over time. Today it's even worse relative to, or more difficult, I wouldn't say worse, more difficult to work with banks, ratios. I work in a blue-collar environment. Most of my technicians were very, very smart in math, but they're not college thinkers. They tend to have not done well in high school, but they think very mathematically, and I'm a service company. I don't do any new construction, so I fix things that are already existing, which is a different type of plumbing. They're 2 kind of separate kind of thought processes. Relative to kind of how that works is it's definitely a different mentality and a different thought process. Interesting enough, my technicians, a lot of them make more than some of my friends that went to college because of supply and demand. Right now there's a very big supply for blue-collar industry, and I only have about 5 technicians under the age of 30. It's a big problem for me because younger generations have been told, go to college, get a white-collar job, and it's making it very difficult. The guys that do work for me that are younger, their friends give them a hard time, but they're going to do very well for themselves because plumbing is recession-proof, and I can prove it. So it's good. It's a good business to be in. People are used to taking hot showers. In 2009 or 10, my customers wanted me to start an HVAC division, so I started a 2nd division. I've started a 3rd division, which was excavation, and I wasn't good at it. And so I've experienced both success and failure. I shut down my excavation division a year and a half ago. And honestly, that was the first time I'd ever failed in business, and I was pissed. I was not happy. It was very costly, but I came up with a solution. I got very creative. Excavation, just to give you guys an idea, that's the sewer pipes that run from the building to the street. I had big backhoes, I had dump trucks, and I just couldn't manage it. It was a different type of mentality. My plumbers are very smart guys that just didn't do well in educational settings. Excavation is just digging, and that was just a different mentality. I currently still do that, but I partnered with another company and subcontracted it and got creative on how it works. So I have plumbing as a revenue stream, I have HVAC as a revenue stream. Excavation, I collect the money and basically I double the price of what my subcontractor wants me to pay, and I don't do any work. Currently I have 55 employees, and I'm recruiting for 3 more spots. At the peak of employment for my company, I was at 75 and I was doing excavation. And when I got rid of that division, I was able to eliminate 20 people. And I shopped around other excavation companies and I demanded that they hired everybody in that department because I wasn't going to let them pay the price for it. And they did. They offered every single one of them a job. Some of them took it, some of them didn't, some people didn't, but that wasn't my decision. I have 7 people in my customer service department. Other things about my business that are interesting and different is that my uncle is in charge of my warehouse, which is odd because I remember he was the adult and I was the kid, and now it's kind of opposite. My brother worked for a company in marketing, and I don't like doing marketing, so I hired him to do marketing. What I didn't tell him is that I was going to put him in charge of my customer service department as well, and I threw that on him last minute, which was awesome for me because I didn't want to do that anymore.
Is he older or younger brother?
Younger, I'm the oldest.
Alright.
So but it's odd. It's definitely odd. And a couple other things about my company and my industry. My industry is pretty cutthroat. There are 5 major players in town. Out of those 5 major players, 3 of them in their mission statement talk about profitability. In my opinion, that's insulting. It's about greed. If you do the right thing, charge fair prices, you don't mention profitability. My mission statement doesn't mention money once. Because if you do everything right, the money will follow. But with the supply and demand of employees and in my industry, it's definitely an interesting time. Everybody, you guys have probably heard a lot about health insurance and things like that relative to companies. Companies have a different perspective on all of it. It's interesting how that's developed and relative to supply and demand. When you're in an industry that doesn't have enough employees, the employees tend to have the upper hand, and they know it. So you have to take that into account. You have to be able to adjust for that. And so that's kind of the foundation of my company. I've been expanding. My sales have increased pretty much 20% a year for the last couple of years. And not only that, but if I could find 10 more technicians, I could fill trucks right now and be doing another $5 million in sales. We do everything from water heaters, sinks, furnaces, ACs, leaks. And every industry has trends as well. In my industry, the worst thing that can happen is 65 degrees. Because water, when it's hot, will cause problems relative to sinks, garbage disposals, water heaters. When it's cold, it'll do damage to water heaters, pipes outside faucets, sprinklers, things like that. Never really knew much about the weather, didn't care until I got into plumbing. So it's amazing when you start looking at businesses and what you decide to do, how much you rely on so many other pieces. From a business standpoint, I've been growing to the point where I have 4 managers right below me, and I try not to make too many tiers separating too many people. So I have like a small, they're kind of like leaders below that, and then everybody else. And things have changed over time. I used to answer the phone. I've been out on service calls. I used to have to do everything. I used to do the advertising. I've been growing so fast, and recently I've been changing my role that for the last 6 months, I haven't been in the management daily operations meeting. It's weird. They make decisions. Some I like, some I don't. But you have to kind of let them go with it and see what happens. That's kind of the foundation of my company. What are you guys working on right now? You guys working on vision, mission statements, goals? What else?
Well, they're just getting started with the business plan, but we just covered legal structures. Did you?
Okay, legal structures.
Can you
Yeah.
talk about how you're set up? And they have homework due on that this week.
Okay.
So.
So when I started in 2000, LLCs didn't exist. That's one of the structures that you can do. It didn't exist at the time. There was C corporations and S corporations. The difference between a C corporation and an S corporation is a C corporation, easiest way, my wife's a science person, so the way I explained it to her was, a C corporation is like an adult child. It's its own identity. It has its own tax responsibilities. It has its own liabilities if something goes wrong. It's its own entity. An S corporation is kind of like having a child. And in that case, an S corporation, the responsibility filters from the company to the owners. And so everything that happens falls on me. When we make a profit, the company doesn't get taxed. The tax liability filters down to me. In terms of liability, if one of my techs were to do something, it falls down to me. So a big part of the difference between an S corporation and an S corporation has to do with who's ultimately liable. There's benefits and drawbacks to both. A lot of it has to do with taxes. Most people will tell you to start a company as an LLC or an S corporation because you get the benefit of all of the losses. The first couple years, I had tax returns that were more than my paychecks. It's awesome. Now, I'm profitable, and I owe the IRS money that I'm sitting here going, that's more than I make. What ends up happening is I end up filtering money by saying, I'm going to bonus myself, and then I'm going to pay taxes on it. So I have to pay taxes twice, basically, because I have to bonus myself and get taxed on it, and then I have to pay the government for the income that the company made.
So you're a C Corp now?
I am still an S Corp.
S Corp now, okay.
I'm still that.
Okay.
In 2008, when I bought a building, and what I didn't want to do is put everything in one basket. So I started another company. It's called 541 Norfolk LLC. It's not as creative as done. The reason it's called 541 Norfolk LLC is because the address is 541 Norfolk. Simple. So what I did is I created an LLC. An LLC is very similar to an S corporation. The owners are responsible for the tax liability, and they have more liability than if it was a C corporation or kind of like its own person. But again, it has to do with taxes, and it has to do with liability. There is limited liability in both an S corporation and limited in an LLC. However, there's still a liability there. One of the big things about business owners that I know is that once you get to a certain point in success, you come talk to classes, I take vacation days whenever I want, I do whatever I want. But while I'm gone, I'm on the hook. I'm at risk right now for everything that's happening. that's something that takes a while to get used to. A big part of a C corporation is it's got to be, most C corporations have to have certain requirements. They tend to have lots of cash. They tend to be started by people who have already started businesses. Most people will tell you that you're still at risk with a C corporation anyway. But it's changed over time. It used to be that once a year I'd look at the new laws for the upcoming year. Washington doesn't like to do that. They like to pass laws every 6 weeks. So you have to pay attention to everything that's going on, good and bad. Last time I spoke, I told everybody I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat. I just can't stand having to react to Washington. It's crazy how much they're doing. But those are the 3 types of entities. There are things like sole proprietorships. Basically, it's just a individual who owns a company. I have a friend who provides handyman services. It falls under a sole proprietorship. He makes it so that way any tax liability he has goes against his social security number. When you're a corporation, you have your own identity. You have your own social security number, which is called the federal ID number. And that's how they track that. What else? What else would you guys like to talk about? I could come up with all sorts of topics, but I want to make sure.
Well, how about, since we're talking about goals, maybe, so you got your mission statement,
So I have my mission statement.
and then I'm just wondering, how do you set your goals for like the year, or?
So it took me 13 years to come up with a mission statement.
See, I told you, it take a long time.
Just so you know, like I said, when I first started, they didn't care. It took me 13 years, and I ended up doing it pretty much committee style. I took my managers and I said, what's our mission going to be? And I put down some rules. I said, 1, we have to talk about the employees. They're the ones who make the money. 2, we have to talk about our customers. 3, we have to talk about our organization. And 4, we have to talk about safety. So we divided it up. I have a mission statement, and then inside that I have core values. I don't have it memorized, but it is on my wall in 3 places at my office. And I looked at my competitors, I looked at other companies, and I looked at what I was trying to accomplish. I wanted people to understand my culture. I don't have turnover in an industry that has a lot of turnover. And the reason for that is I pay my people very well, but more importantly, I make sure that they count and they matter. I stand behind them, and they know that. And so, and a lot of that has to do with my core values and what I'm trying to accomplish. I try to recruit, and there are literally plumbers out there that work for other companies who've said to my other employees, I'm not good enough to work it done. Which is a problem for me because some of them are. They just don't believe in themselves. But I've built such a reputation of being at the top that it sometimes actually backfires on me. So my values really do lead to, if you take care of your employees and you take care of your customers and you pay attention to what you're doing professionally, the money will always follow. It's just the way it is. Like I said, my competition, 3 of them, they put money first. One of them actually says in their mission statement, we deserve the right for profitability. Now, I'll tell you this right now. They are the most expensive company in town to do business with, and I charge $2,100 to do water heaters and code upgrades, and they charge $6,200 for the same work. People call them every day. I sent my dad actually they had a conference, senior AARP for old people, seniors. They did a little conference, and of course this company sponsored this conference because they gravitate to try to find where money is, and that's what matters to them. And it's easy to take take advantage of older people. So I sent my dad to this conference. And he didn't appreciate it because he was bored, but I wanted to know when they weren't going to let me go. So there's things like that. You have to define who you are, what you want. I think one of the things that people have a hard time starting a business is understanding their value. Most people underestimate their value. All of you have jobs. Have any of you said to an employer, I know you offered me this, but I want more? It's hard, right? It is. It's difficult. The mentality of looking out for yourself is one thing. As a company, I'm looking out for 55 families. It's the same concept. You can go to Home Depot and get a water heater for $600. The water heater they sell, I don't sell because it's not very good and it's going to last 4 to 5 years. They outsource their installers who are going to come in a beat up truck and they're going to do minimal amount of work. My water heaters are better quality, so they're more expensive, but my guys are better, and they're going to put everything up to code upgrade, and I charge for it, and I don't apologize for it. That's a tough lesson. When I first started, now granted, things cost a lot less back then, but I used to charge $400 for a water heater. I was making $100 profit, or $100 after my labor and my water heater, and then I had to use that $100 for all my other expenses. If I continued on that path, I wasn't honoring my company, and I had to up my prices. And over time, other things have happened. You have to keep up with your trends, your industry, and what the government's doing. Right now, the water heater I installed 15 years ago is illegal today. Can't install it because environmentally, the EPA said these are hurting the environment. You have to put in better quality water heaters. Well, everybody had to get a piece. The manufacturers had to do their research. They had to charge more, which led to my suppliers having to charge more, which means I have to supply and charge more. And it's just gone up over time. So all these things happen all at the same time, and you kind of have to. I always say I never know what my day is going to look like, because my job leading 55 people is to make sure that they're happy and they have the tools to succeed. I walk in, my desk is actually pretty clean because at this point I'm no longer responsible for determining pricing. My service manager is. I have an accounting department of 4 people that provide me financial statements and work all of the financial components. I have an HR person who does my recruiting. My sucker brother does my customer service department. And I just go in and answer questions for them all day long on how I can help them succeed. In my industry, most people come from environments of screamers and yellers, and that's just not how I manage. Big part of how you're going to do is going to determine on how you want to manage. You have to be assertive, but how do you want to do it? I had a technician on Monday. I haven't had any problems until Monday. You ask me to come either Monday or Wednesday, and I say I never do anything on Monday because I never know what's going to happen. On Monday, one of my guys was installing a special water heater in a salon. And it's a specialty salon. It's kind of an upper class salon. And they closed for the day so I could do it. And they weren't paying attention, and they set off the sprinkler system in the entire building. Fire department, the building owner, the owner of the salon, my techs. That's a specialty that we don't do, so I had to call in another company to fix the sprinkler alarm. I had to call in a restoration company to clean up all of the water. And I got there and I ordered lunch for everybody, including the 2 technicians that caused the problem. And one of the technicians came up to me and said, "We did all this damage and you bought us lunch." Huh? Why? Because I'm not going to exclude the 2 of you. I want to buy lunch for everybody else. The guy who did it came over right after that and said, "Are you going to yell at me?" Nope. Why not? What good is that going to do? It made him feel so much worse. Awesome. And it got the point across, and it was a mistake. You have to account for that. I deal with the public, You know, I get how financial times are working. I know that people, they own houses. The average person has $2,000 in savings, and I sell water heaters for $2,500. I do water lines for $6,000. Imagine your sewer line going out from your house to your street. It's $10,000 to $15,000. It's my cost. It's the cost of doing business. My profit margin is 5%. So when I do a job for $15,000, I made $750. All my expenses are done. It's crazy. And you have to work with people who, if they only have $2,000, how are they going to do it? We use Wells Fargo financing, but you've got to partner with all of these people to make this happen. You can't just start out and say, oh, wait, you don't have any money? How can I help you? You have to open up your accounts with your credit card vendors. Does anybody know how much a company pays credit card companies to process their credit cards?
2 to 3%.
2 to 3%, depending on the company. 3% of every single credit card I take goes directly to the credit card company. Most people don't know that. My insurance and my liability insurance, I have right now 37 trucks. Take your insurance premium for your car and multiply it by 37. I had one technician run a red light because they were on the phone in March. Not only luckily they didn't hurt anybody, but this technician hit a 2014 SUV, a second car that was, I don't remember what that was, and then a third car, which was a Porsche. They had a bad day. I had a bad day, and the insurance company said, you're installing phones in every single one of your trucks, wireless phones. I had to change all of my safety procedures. It had nothing to do with me. And I had a safety program in place. All these people are talking to you, telling you what you are going to do. I always thought when you got to a certain size, you got to be a certain organization, that you got to tell other people what to do. Man, more people tell me what to do now than when I first started. It drives me crazy. So, you know, and all you can do is make sure that you've got your ducks in a row on what you're trying to accomplish. You know, a big part of my goal has always been, I want my technicians to make more money this year than they did the year before. My technicians are on commission. The only way they can make more is, one, if I raise my prices, but I can only do that to a certain extent. Or two, I can teach them how to sell and give them the opportunity to do it. And one of the big things is I want them to make more money every year. Almost all my employees have kids, spouses. Their problems are my problems. If a guy is on commission and he has a bad check because he didn't perform, small businesses are different. I'd love for you to go to Victoria's Secret President and say, I'd like a loan. Love to see what happens. I get it every month. And one of my values is I want my employees to be happy. When it's 65 degrees outside, it's the slowest time for me. I can tell them, I can remind them every year about how much slower I'm going to be today than I was 2 months ago or 2 months coming up. But they don't live like that. They live paycheck to paycheck like most people, and their problems are my problems. So I give pay advances. Interest-free. And you have to understand and identify what you can and can't do for people. I give pay advances up to $500. I set limits, and they know the limits. About 8 employees that once their $500 is paid off, come right back to me for another $500. It's just the way it is. But it's really important to identify your culture and make sure that everybody below you understands what you're trying to accomplish. I've fired very successful people because they were too greedy, too selfish, and treated people poorly. When I had my excavation division, my biggest problem is I couldn't find a manager to run it really hard. And the last manager I had before I decided to sell it off to another company, he laid into 3 or 4 people, and I heard it. My office is in that corner, and this guy's office was in that corner, and I could hear it. I went running, didn't know what was happening. And I listened, got everybody dispersed. This guy said, I just need to cool down, and he left, and he went to lunch. He gave me an hour to prepare for the fact that I wasn't going to let that happen anymore, and I fired him when he got back. And it is a big deal. It's very interesting when you fire your top performers because they don't match your culture. It hurts, but in the long run, the other 55 people respect you so much more. It's totally worth it. What other?
How do you we haven't talked about organizational culture, but how do you, and then they might have questions for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
To open up about all the things you have to think about to start a business, but like how do you convey your culture to your employees? Or what, and just maybe briefly say what it is.
So
Kinda like
I have an orientation day, and a lot of paperwork, a lot of administrative things. And then what I do is 2 weeks after they've started, everybody meets with, they kind of have another follow-up about what we do and how we do it. And the good news is my trainers, they know about how we operate, what we do. I try not to listen to what my trainers have said to people because it's kind of like a chance for employees to bond. But I always hear, especially in the customer service because they're in the office, the war stories that they tell them in the first 2 weeks about this scenario and that scenario. And they're always rooting for me. And so that's really important. And then in 2 weeks, I talk with them and I meet with them. We hired a guy last week, and he was walking through the hall to the exit. He goes, yes! And I was walking right by him when he did it, and I put up my hand and gave him a high five and just kept walking. He started today and found out who I was. Awesome. He was like, oh man. But I spend a lot of time. I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years creating a training program. When I first started, I didn't have any of that. I was winging it. And as you get bigger, it becomes more and more important to set your foundation. I wish I would have listened to everybody else that advised me on the importance of setting your foundation at the beginning. Because there are changes that I would make today that I can't make. I can't go back. And so, with my technicians being on commission, my commission structure is very complicated and started out with a 1-page sheet. It's now 8 pages. It's grown and it's developed, but I can't go back. It's also an industry standard. My industry is commission-based. A lot of sales positions are commission-based. But I can't go back. And there's so setting that foundation is so important. But that's how I really push my culture today, is making sure everybody knows who does what, and identifying who the right people are going to support my culture. My trainers are awesome. They really are. And every once in a while, I have somebody who is a drain cleaner. He's younger, and he's really good. And I thought, okay, we have 2 younger employees. Let's put him with them to train. But I forgot about the fact that he taught them not just what he did and what he liked, but some of his bad habits with inexperience. Paid the price for it, because those 2 guys, I had to go back and pull them back out and say, nope, you got to do it this way. Oh, but Austin does it this way. and it makes things really complicated.
So questions you all have about?
I actually have two questions, and they're pretty fast. Before they actually gave you like the money for your business, the $50,000, did you actually have to apply for a license and certification for plumbing before they actually went?
And that's changed. In the state of Colorado, you have to have a master's plumber's license to practice plumbing. And then you just had to have one master work for you under your company. I didn't have a master. So what I did is I leased a master's license, if you will. A business is not always black and white. It's illegal. I basically said to a guy, I'll pay you $200 a month to use your license. He didn't work for me. And he said, cool, extra beer money. I used that for 4 or 5 years, and then finally I started to get big enough that I said I gotta get my own master license, and I had to hire a guy and pay him more for his license. Regulations have changed. All the plumbing companies did that in 1999, 2000. All of them. Today, I have 5 guys with master's license, and I'll never put myself in a position where I have to depend on any one of them. But yeah, I have to have a master's license in plumbing. I have to have a license in certain cities. I used to go from Boulder to Castle Rock and everywhere in between. I still do. I don't advertise in Boulder anymore because Boulder's has its own requirements, and I just don't like them, and they're just hard to work with. So I elected to not advertise in Boulder. If you call me, I'll go. But you have to make business decisions like that. So I do have licenses. Go ahead.
How do you account for business loss? Do you actually put money aside for your personal growth, or do you actually have a insurance company that covers you? Or do you do a little bit of both?
An insurance company. I've never heard of an insurance company covering me for losses. Like property losses or
Like business loss?
Oh, okay, yeah, like the property damage. I have insurance. My insurance bill is for my automobile, work comp, general liability. I think I pay about $300,000 a year. And I try to cover as many of the claims as I can without reporting it to insurance. There's a little secret about insurance companies. They're gonna get their money back. And it's not like personal, where if you get a speeding ticket or if you make a claim, you can call another insurance company and they're like, okay, we'll take you. They do audits and reviews. They kind of work together. And I'm gonna pay for a claim for the next 3 years and they're gonna get their money back. So I try not to do claims. So if we do something small, we partner with a restoration company that in case we do create a small mess, they can clean it up without reporting it to insurance. But I do report claims. I have a $1,000 deductible. This claim on Monday is probably going to cost $20,000. So they'll increase my premiums probably $7,000 a year for the next 3 years to cover that. So what else do you guys want?
Other questions?
I'm pretty open here, guys.
If your company continues to grow so much and you just get a huge spike, would you consider moving out of Colorado and potentially growing even more?
That's a good question. No.
No?
If you would have asked me that question 5 years ago, I would have. Part of it has to do with at what point is enough enough. I don't have a single day off, ever. I went to Ireland for my best friend's 40th birthday, and a guy called me at 2 o'clock in the morning because he didn't know I was in Ireland and it was only like noon here or whatever. Man, you're killing me. I'm on vacation in Ireland and you're calling me. It doesn't ever stop. So I've reached a point, I think, more about in my personal life than my business life, where enough's enough. My wife went back to school for, what's something science? I try to remember, but it's science, and I'm not a science person. She's in biochem, I don't know. She doesn't work, so I've gotten to the point where I just don't want to have that experience. I looked into it. I looked at Seattle, Kansas City, and Minneapolis. because my excavation referral company back then was in those 3 places. And there's enough laws and there's enough changes and there's enough differences that I just didn't feel like I could do it. You had a question?
Yeah, what are some things that you focus on apart from the other 4 competitors? Besides, seems like you're more an ethical company, good ethics.
Ethics is a big part of it. Out of the big players, I'm actually the least expensive. I'm expensive, and I'm the least expensive. I can't compete with 1 and 2 man trucks. They don't have the overhead that I do. The building I bought a couple years ago is 23,000 square feet. I bought a house and I thought that was a big deal until I bought a building. Man. Other things that I do, a lot of it has to do with follow-up. I call my customer when I'm on the way. I call them when we're done. I make sure that my customers are happy. Can't make everybody happy, but I always do follow-up calls. But a big part of it, I have to say, is my employees. I take everybody to a Rockies game once a year. I do a holiday party. I do holiday bonuses. I do monthly bonuses. And my employees understand that that's a big part of it. My guys are in uniforms. I don't have a single truck that's older than 6 years old. I turn them over because I want my trucks to look good and I want them to not break down. Well, the people that buy my trucks, ironically enough, are small plumbers who are buying 200,000 miles already on the truck, and I already know what's going to happen. They're going to break down, and they're going to have problems. And my benefits are really good for my industry. I know a lot of people. I have friends that work for the government gig. I give them a hard time. It's a pretty good gig. They get sick time, and they get holiday time, and they get some Tuesday time, all sorts of stuff. It's ridiculous. I give seven holidays, the 6 major holidays and your birthday. So when the bank is closed on some small holiday, I'm still open. I'm open every day but Christmas. And I reward those who work really, really hard. And I try to do something for them every month. Something. We do bring in food for the office. And my techs know that they have the best equipment too. I don't go cheap on equipment. So I supply the machines, the equipment. I buy the top end stuff. I maintain it. They take their trucks home. So that means they don't have to drive all the way to the shop, to drive all the way back to their house. And it's a benefit for me. One of the things that people ask, why did you do that? Well, me being cynical, if I get robbed in one truck, it's at one location. If somebody were to break into my yard and all my trucks were there, they'd break into all of them. It's kind of cynical thinking, but that was part of the reasoning. And my guys get broken into every once in a while. They just do. Just the way it is. A lot of money in the back of those things.
So one more question we have time for? Dominic?
In regards to what you were talking, as far as like you have a strong backing for your employees, like obviously, them feeling as if you're loyal to them is obviously important, but how do you figure at what point where you draw the line? As far as you're cutting into my well-being, being my company's well-being, and then my personal well-being, I can't have that.
That's a good question. The way I've always looked at it is, as I've grown, the way I look at it right now is I have 55 employees. I have 55 families that I pay, that I'm responsible for everything. If you put all of those, you're willing to put all of those people at risk, not for the greater good, you can't work for me. And that's been a big part of it. And I've taken advice weird advice. I'll never forget my dad when I was 16 years old said, if you're gonna break up with a girl, do it at her house, do it under 5 minutes and get out. Great advice, right? Great advice. Well, if you ever try to fire somebody, they're gonna sit there, they're in your building, they want to talk about it, they're gonna try to argue with you, they're gonna say, no, this was a misunderstanding. And I kind of take the same philosophy. I gotta look out for greater good. My guys take their trucks home. They have their tools in the truck. It's not so simple for me when I break up with a technician. Customer service, it's a little bit easier. I just need your key. But we have to do an inventory of $10,000 worth of parts and $20,000 worth of equipment and $5,000. They all have their own hand tools. 5 to 10,000 of your own hand tools. We have to separate who owns what. Unfortunately, we don't get to break up that simple, but I take the same approach. Conversation is short and sweet, but I'm pretty fair. I always hear this. I very rarely do I not hear this. I didn't know I was in trouble. Here's write-up 1. Here's write-up 2. Here's write-up 3. How did you not know you were in trouble? So I'm very honest about all of it because it doesn't go well if you're not up front, and everybody knows where they stand. And so I've always taken the approach, if you're just honest about it, and most of the time they're going to tell you they didn't know that was coming, they didn't see it coming, I didn't understand. They all know each other. These guys know each other in every company. So they're going to all talk. I've fired people, and general managers of other companies have called me and said, what happened? What do you mean? How did you find out about this? I take the same approach.
So when you first started your business, you said that you wanted to change some things nowadays that you did back then. But would you say that you had the same, ideas and goals on how to run your business, or would you say that it's completely 180 that you had to learn this whole time?
I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it without knowing. I mean, some of the experiences you get, my decisions have always been the decisions that cost the company the most amount of money, good or bad. And sometimes it takes a while to learn. I had a technician he was from Russia, his customer was from another country, and they got into an altercation, and I told my guy to get out. Well, my guy was from Russia, and he sometimes didn't understand things either. He left all his tools in the house. And it just got way out of hand. I would never handle the situation the same now. I always tell people when a customer calls, if they're cussing at you, because, people are just, I get into a lot of domestic issues. Husband says okay to the work, wife finds out how much it costs, and all of a sudden I'm in the middle of their world. So they call in and they don't do that. I always tell my customer service reps, they're cussing at you, tell them, you need to stop cussing when this conversation is over. You have to give them one warning. And I've always done that. About 2 years ago, I broke my own rule, and there's no cussing. You're not allowed to cuss if you work for me to a customer. And I was kind of fried. I was about to take a vacation, and I told this guy what I thought of him. I went the other way, and so nobody's perfect, but I've learned along the way. And I've had mistakes that have cost me that I didn't even know. I was always afraid of OSHA. I'm still afraid of OSHA. I've had an OSHA violation. It's educational. But I was very honest with them, and it turned out they were pretty cool about it. I paid my fine, but now I know. And there's a lot of times that you won't, that's how you learn. What's that? The Occupational Safety Hazard Administration. Yeah, that's the government making sure you're making your employees safe.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. I brought my cards in case any of you.
Oh, good. Thank you so much, Jeromy. And before the rest of you get out of here, I have your international mini projects to give back, so you can read the comments.
What time's it?
1 o'clock. Okay. Thank you, Jeromy. I'll give your cards out too.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And so, biggest thing, you might have missed a few points on country research. I was you didn't define the form of business. You said, I'm gonna go in as direct investment, and then didn't explain it. Remember, I said to define it, but that wasn't too many points if you did others. And then if you just missed some of the barriers to trade. But anyway, if you have questions or can't read my writing, come, so Callista, I'm gonna have you come get them if you don't mind. Sam. But they were, for the most part, they were good. I enjoyed reading them. I hope you learned stuff. Did y'all like the project? Dominic, Sam, thank you. Dominic, Lisa, Nick. Oh wait, Nick, yeah. And Nick Martinez, that's hers. Dallas over here. Joseph. Caesar. Remember, it's out of 50 points. Sabrina. You just have a sheet. Allie. Oh, yeah. Thank you. That was fun listening to it. And Allie. Mark is not here. Eric. Ben. Chloe. So there's a 5 and a 6. Oh, yeah. 5, and then if you want. And let me give out that business proposal. So it's in the Dropbox, but I have it here if you want to. I mean, it's okay, but I have it here. Just so if you want to get started.
For this thing, are we?
Oh, that was just to kind of start looking at. But we'll work on it some more.
Okay, we don't have to worry about this
Thank
for
you.
now.
So with my project, I because it was a barren class, I wasn't feeling well.
Okay.
My computer fried, so I never got to send an email. I know, and it's really neat too.
I know, I'm like, let's get it.
Awful
I know.
stuff. I'm just like, can you do anything? And any of my classes, no, it's fine. It's plans that I don't need for.
And so,
It's awesome.
but you're here now, just
I know.
advantage of it. You can't.
With this project, I'm just gonna cut ties with it. I'm gonna start. I know it's gonna
Okay,
affect
we'll
me.
do
I just
chapter
don't
4
wanna
homework.
step back
If
and
you
try to
do the
keep up.
speaker summary, that's an extra bonus.
Okay,
I think
perfect.
it says 10, but I don't make it 50. And then here's the business plan proposal. I told him to write October 12th, you bring the copy of mine.
Okay, cool.
We're gonna go over it. And it's really only about a page and a half.
It's like trying to not Titanic myself.
Okay, I
It's
might
just your idea, a brief marketing plan, the target market price, product place,
Still, it's like
promotion.
third hardcore classes, so it's my first.
And you just briefly say, I think I'm gonna price it
So I
relative
just
to
do myself.
competition, or I'm gonna price it to cost, plus 20%.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a brief one sentence and that's technique for each
Personal
of those.
finance
And then
class,
who
high
is your
school,
competition?
and
So if
then
you're opening
personal
a
finance
massage
class
therapy
now is like
over, you would look up a few other institutions and talk
It's
about
like
briefly.
that
There's like 3 other
expounded
bold
by
that I'm
a
gonna set
lot.
myself apart.
It's like,
You
okay.
can't say that's you gotta use business.
Alright,
And that's it.
I might email you about formatting, just because that's something that always gets me with
Okay.
papers, is how to lay it out. But other
It's
than
just
that, it
cover
should be
page
fine.
and then headings, business description, you can put your mission statement in there.
I can just
legal
list it out
structure.
as if I'm writing
Well,
notes.
like you say, the business proposed is a masseuse. Okay, a massage service. A mission statement and you write it out. The legal structure is set up for this as an LLC because I want to have, the business wants to have limited liability. There's your business description. That's the first part. And then the second is a brief on market, like targeting people in Boulder who want therapeutic massages. There's your target market. Product will come to their house or they can come to the studio for massage.
I
You need
looked
to
at
describe your product service.
like last
Promotion
week,
briefly,
the whole
going to
chapter of
advertise on.
classes in my head almost is.
Okay,
So,
cool, I think I should be okay.
alright, and then the competition briefly, it's just to get you thinking about it for the final project.
Alright,
And then
Thank
for
you.
the certain
Okay, Ally.
There's like magic, I'm like, is this great water?
I just got it before I came here, I didn't look at it. Was it your plan? Oh, okay.
It is, I don't know.
Did you put it in the Dropbox?
I did not.
Okay, I need you to drop it in there because it's still open. Okay.
That will do.
And you've used your lathe
I
now.
actually can just do it on my phone right now.
Okay, yeah.
with chapter 5?
Hey, Adam.
Just making sure I don't leave anything for the lesson final time.
I didn't, oh, I saw this little flash drive up here. Is that yours?
No, that's.
Or that?
Yeah, I got three.
Okay.
Okay, have a good weekend.
All right.
Good
Don't
weekend.
papercut yourself.
See you tomorrow.
These things are-
Okay, bye. I was like, where are we leaving?
Yeah. No more, thanks. Wednesday.
All right, bye, Adam.
Some really awesome notes. Jealous. I had this friend, she's also one of her classmates, she would take notes on anything and everything. I'm like, you got this, don't worry. You're smart, you're talented, you got this, you don't need to write notes on every little thing.
I put a lot of trees in this semester, encouraging them to do it really sad.
I know, like, I got like a packet of like 12 of these, because I had it throughout the whole book, I'm like, because everything's important. I'm like, I'm afraid I'm gonna miss one little thing, and like, I didn't have that, I'm freaking out.
Unfortunately, highlighting is not for me. I think for some people they highlight and
Yeah.
those are all bad.
Here's my notes for this chapter so far. So I have class notes, aka homework notes, class notes, learning objectives, and then I have my terms all written out. And then I have other important things that need to be. Other than that, I always like to write down in my book that says refer to or review this. So I've been a lot better in high school was the struggle.
Cody,
But
yours?
stuff
I
like-
regraded it again, but then I saw it in the Dropbox and I'm like,
High school, and
your homework, you'd already
Yeah,
done it.
yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, at least I graded it the same.
That's good.
I know, I'm like, I'm consistent. I was like, oh, he already turned this in. But I had printed it out because I thought it was the project, so.
Yeah, it was supposed to be.